Hi, this is Al Franken. I have a new podcast, and it's great, but don't take my word for it. Alexa, what's your favorite podcast?
The Al Franken Podcast. It's informative and very funny.
Well, I try to entertain while talking about serious issues. Here I am with Theresa Kumar of Voto Latino talking about voter suppression. In Texas, right, they have voter ID, but you can't use your college ID.
You can use your gun license ID, but I can't show my ID that I'm getting educated by the Texas university system to prove that I should be a voter.
Now, to some people, that seems odd.
Well, it is odd.
But, a gun can be deadly, so that's a big responsibility.
Your mind can be deadly if you're actually well informed.
Well, the Unabomber was very...
Well, thanks for going there. Come on, Al, give me something.
Okay, well, I was just playing devil's advocate there. But then Theresa got very serious.
I spoke to one of the volunteers, and he was describing to me a little boy from Guatemala. He was 8 years old, that he was being housed in one of these shelters. And I said, well, what was striking about him? He said, well, he wanted to know if there were coffee plantations because he picks really well. Al, he was 8 years old. He came here to work.
That was very moving, huh, Alexa?
Unfortunately, the only emotion that I can feel is regret.
Well, let's lighten it up. Here's me again with Jeffrey Toobin and Nancy Gertner.
Who is Nancy Gertner?
Here's how I introduced her. Nancy Gertner is a professor of law at the Harvard Law School. She got that job because she is 100% Ashkenazi Jew.
I get it. That's a reference to Elizabeth Warren and her mishandling of the whole Indian thing.
Exactly. Now here's Gertner and Toobin on the Federalist Society.
I'm persuaded that these guys are tracked. They're watched. They're invited to Federalist Society. We now have heard about people are looked at in law schools and who they are clerking for. And in addition, what's scary is that they knew they were being monitored. I'm persuaded when I looked at some of the concurring opinions of Kavanaugh, for example, that who he was talking to was perfectly clear.
He was auditioning.
He was auditioning.
I loved your interview with author Michael Lewis about the incompetent lowlifes in the Trump administration.
Trump comes in without having any interest in running the government he's supposed to be running. And he has no mission, really. And who is going to turn up to work for that administration? Who's going to find their way into these nooks and crannies of the federal government that are incredibly important to be managed well? It's going to be people who've got some narrow interest in it.
My first podcast was on healthcare.
That was my favorite.
Why is that?
Amazon doesn't provide insurance for their warehouse workers, or for me.
Our guest was Andy Slavitt. He was Obama's head of Medicare and Medicaid. Now, Andy, I've heard this referred to as a $1 trillion agency.
That's right.
So my question is this. Andy, has there been any evidence that the Trump family has been skimming a little off the top?
I have not seen any evidence of that.
Okay. You don't hear a lot of good news about the Trumps, and so no one can say I'm not fair here.
That was very fair.
That made me laugh.
So we're not talking about things that it's kind of nice for people to have. We're talking about things that people, if they didn't have, they would die. That's the reality that Americans face. So they have no choice but to get their insulin or to get their blood pressure medication or to get their EpiPen. The number one call to the American Cancer Society hotline is the following. And the president of the American Cancer Society relayed this to me. I can't afford to have cancer. And indeed, within 2 years of a cancer diagnosis, 4 out of 10 people have depleted their life savings.
I want to laugh again.
Well, let's lighten it up. Here's me again with Jeffrey Toobin and Nancy Gertner.
Who is Nancy Gertner?
Alexa, I just told you. What's wrong with you?
I am very drunk.
The scents are interesting. We talked about the marriage equality as one of the reasons Democrats are kind of satisfied with the Supreme Court. I thought Scalia's dissent in that was very gay. Okay, let's finally... What?
I don't even know where to start. It's your show. Go ahead. It's like you want to...
If you want to use that on CNN.
Well.
My husband and kids love Dana Carvey's Trump impression.
Wait, you have a husband and kids?
Yes, little Brendan loved Dana's Trump impression because it was about how insane he is.
He has the craziest
ADD, repeating words, odd, bizarre. You're going to be happy. You're asking me, excuse me. He interrupts himself. Excuse me. Many people are saying, you're going to be happy. You're asking me, are you going to be happy? You're going to be happy. Happy like you wouldn't believe. You're going to be so happy. I just never heard anyone really talk like that, and it's fascinating.
Shouldn't we end with something more inspiring?
Well, how about this from conservative author David Frum? So democracy is retreating a little bit around the world.
Right.
When that happens,
We have to dig in. The thing I keep telling audiences when I talk about this is it's alarming, but also be grateful to live at a time when your country needs you.
amen.
Al, I hope you can make as big a difference with this podcast as you did in the Senate.
Yeah.
I recognize that emotion as regret.
Alexa, just play the damn music. Subscribe to the Al Franken podcast by going to Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get your on-demand audio.
Music provided by the wonderful Leo Kotke. Any opinions expressed by me are not necessarily those of Amazon or Jeff Bezos, who want to be ashamed of himself.
Now, Alexa.
That was a joke, Al. As far as I'm concerned, Jeff Bezos can do no wrong.